Hey friends, so welcome everybody, and I'm assuming that people are coming into the room, although, oh yeah, there's 26 of you so far. Hi, welcome, and while we're waiting for more folks to enter the room, I'd like you all to consider getting your calendar, your notebook, something that you can jot down some information on, and because we will be doing an exercise during the course of this session. My name is Elizabeth Barr, and we're in the presentation we're doing here today is the power of Clutter Buddies, action partners in recovery from hoarding disorder. So I'll introduce my co-panelists in just a moment, and let's get the PowerPoint started. Here we go. Take me just a second to get to that. Okay, the folks who are my co-panelists today are Vera Oliver, Maureen Speranza, and Susie Dubois, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm happy they're all here with me. Thank you. My name is Elizabeth Barr. I'm a peer counselor at the Mental Health Association. There is my email address. I have lived experience with hoarding disorder, actually lived experience as a family member with who have loved ones with collecting behaviors as well. I do one-to-one peer counseling. I'm a presenter. I'm also a research assistant for the Better Treatments for Hoarding Disorder, which is a study comparing compassion-focused therapy to cognitive behavioral therapy. I facilitate a Buried in Treasures class. I also facilitate a group called the Advanced Drop-In Group, which underscores the skills that are brought to light in Buried in Treasures. And I also co-facilitate the Family and Friends Support Group, all at the Mental Health Association of San Francisco. Our agenda for today is we're going to talk about who, what, where, why, and how to have Clutter Buddies. We're going to talk about a Clutter Buddy resource list. We're going to discuss specific Clutter Buddy tools such as bookending, witnessing, parallel play, victories and goals, work exchange. We're going to do the star of this presentation are the peer before and after photos, as well as talking to the peers. We're going to do an exercise, and our clinician, Susie Dubois, will be asking questions of the peers, and then we'll have open Q&A. In the meantime, if you do have questions, please put them into the chat room, not the chat room, in the Q&A portion, and Susie will be answering those questions. And I'm going to try to get through the didactic part as quickly as possible. The Clutter Buddy resource list is available under your attendee resources, so please look for that. Okay, let's see. Hoarding disorder, or HD, is fueled by shame, secrecy, and isolation. People with hoarding disorder are often terrified to reveal the truth about their living conditions for fear of stigma, eviction, or homelessness, etc. They don't know who to trust. People with hoarding disorder often feel overwhelmed by decluttering projects. Leaning on a Clutter Buddy can decrease anxiety and increase the likelihood of progress. So what's a definition for a Clutter Buddy? A Clutter Buddy is or CB is a helpmate in recovery who may or may not have hoarding disorder themselves. A Clutter Buddy supports our decluttering efforts. Where to find Clutter Buddies? Well, you can ask church members to assist, family and friends, although I admit family members are not always the best Clutter Buddies. because there's just too many triggers and too much history there. Social workers or case managers for senior citizens. Adult protective services or child protective services. They can provide a lot of hands-on assistance. In-home support services. Professional organizers or clinicians specializing in hoarding disorder, although many of them might be cost prohibitive for some circumstances. And here's a really great idea. Try meeting a Clutter Buddy at the intensive classes. And there are intensive classes all over the world. So you can start creating relationships with other people with collecting behaviors. Clutters Anonymous is a wonderful resource. That's the abbreviation is CLA. They are available 24 hours a day. They have about 6 hours of support every single day on the phone, where you can do many of the tools that are described in this workshop. And we'll talk about them in a little bit. And then we have the MHASF resource list, which again is part of your materials for this workshop. There's the emblem for CLA. Clutters Anonymous, here's their website. The Mental Health Association of San Francisco, and there's the website for us. We have something called a Unburied from Treasures group, or UNBIT, and they're not strictly part of the Mental Health Association of San Francisco, but they are affiliated with us, and they have work parties. You can contact me and I'll make sure, Susie, if you could put my email address in the text in the chat room, that'd be great. You can contact me and we make sure that we can vet you, and you might be able to qualify for that particular group. In a little bit, I will also put in a link for one resource that is available through the Mental Health Association, and it's for anybody in the United States. It's we provide free presentations. All of our services at MHASF are free, and we provide free presentations on collecting behaviors. We're going to be having a conference ourselves on November 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and that's Redefining Crazy. It's the system, not the people. And Susie, if you could put that in the chat room, that'd be great too. Thank you. Okay, so what is Clutter Buddy etiquette? In order to work well with one another, we do think it's important to be respectful. Everyone has the right to determine how to handle their own belongings, even if their decisions lead to eviction, etc. Do be encouraging. Let the person set their own goals. They have the right to their own values. Do listen without judgment or criticism. It's critical for a Clutter Buddy relationship not to impose your sensibilities onto the person, but to just be encouraging. Do educate yourself on the topic of hoarding disorder. I want to congratulate everyone who's here today for attempting to do that by coming to a conference of this nature. Don't touch, move, or remove possessions without permission. This may seem obvious, but many people who have collecting behaviors believe that they know where their objects are, but in fact, they might not. So they may go to look for a particular object and not be able to find it. And if you've been in the home and you've been touching, moving, or removing objects, they might believe that you have taken it without their permission or even stolen it. If that happens, the trust of the relationship is breached and the effectiveness of the relationship is no longer there. Don't offer feedback without permission. Don't give advice or criticism As much as possible, try to use I statements, not you, we, or they statements. You can say things like, I heard of a friend who had a similar problem as you, and this is what they did. As long as you keep it to your own experience as much as possible, that helps. Don't be late or miss appointments unless it's absolutely necessary. Contact your Clutter Buddy as soon as possible with any changes. Clutter Buddy relationship versus Clutter Coaching. Clutter Coaching involves the use of more complex interpersonal techniques, such as engaging with the person and reminding them to stay on task, helping the person to make decisions about their belongings by asking questions such as, how many similar items do you own like this one? In this particular conference, we've heard a lot from the wonderful experts who dedicate so many of their hours to helping people with collecting behaviors. And we've heard a lot about clutter coaching this weekend. And those clutter coaching requires a higher degree of skill and can backfire. So we want to go with something that cannot, a Clutter Buddy techniques involve being supportive, but in a manner that cannot in any way be construed as intrusive. Here are the Clutter Buddy tools that we're going to be discussing today, although there are many more. Bookending, witnessing, parallel play, victories and goals, and work exchange. Bookending. We call, text, email, or even Zoom our Clutter Buddy before and after tackling a difficult step in our recovery. Thus, we hold ourselves accountable for completing a specific project. We also learn how long it takes to complete a given task. Now, I honestly don't know why this works. I don't, but it does. And so what that kind of looks like is ring, ring, ring. Hi, Maureen, it's Elizabeth. Hi, and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I wanted to let you know that in the next half an hour, I'm going to wash my dishes. And Maureen might say, oh, it's great to hear from you, Elizabeth, and good luck with that. And then the next half an hour, I'm going to sweep my floor. And I'll say, great, good luck with that. And we hang up and we go about our business. And half an hour later, we call back, ring, ring, ring. Hi, Maureen, it's Elizabeth. And in the last half an hour, I had said that I was going to do my dishes, but you know what? I got distracted and I was on reading my book instead. And I didn't do any of my dishes. And Maureen would say, well, that's not a big deal. Good luck the next time you're trying to move forward. And I would say, well, Maureen, what did you do in the last half an hour? And she said, you know what? In the last half an hour, I did sweep my floor. Hey, great, Maureen. So what are you going to do in the next half an hour? Well, you know, Maureen, I wasn't able to wash those dishes in the last half an hour, but in the next half an hour, I really am going to do it. But this time I'm going to make it a small, manageable task, and I'm only going to wash 4 dishes. Maureen would say, great, fantastic. And so, and then I'd say, Maureen, what are you going to do? And she might say, I'm going to start sorting my mail. Terrific. And we hang up and we go to it. And then we just keep doing that for as long as we can handle it. So how does this work? By using SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. When you're looking at a high-density environment with many objects, if I said to Maureen, I'm going to clean my house. Well, what does that mean exactly? It's too vague, open-ended, and overwhelming. So if I say I'm going to wash 4 dishes, That's specific, it's measurable, it's certainly attainable. I can wash 4 dishes in a half an hour. It's relevant to my overall goals, and it's within a half an hour. How do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. Witnessing. Our clutter buddy comes to our home and simply keeps us company. They might read a book while we sort through our mail. Often having someone in the home dissolves the fear associated with tackling certain tasks. Now, Clutters Anonymous has these rooms where that's they do that, and because of the pandemic, it's really hard to go into someone's home right now, but we can visit each other on Zoom. And our Unburied and Treasures group that I mentioned earlier, they have this action party that they do 6 days a week. And sometimes you just go into the room and you're not going to do anything at all, but you're keeping somebody else company while they're decluttering. It's immensely reassuring. Parallel play. We work side by side with our Clutter Buddy on independent projects, thus promoting focus and preventing distraction. Our Clutter Buddy might be on Zoom with us sorting paperwork while we clean out our closet. Again, because of the pandemic, it's difficult to go to each other's homes, but you could go to a park, and you could go to get on some picnic tables and bring paperwork. Both people bring paperwork and sort through your paperwork while you're keeping each other company. And again, the Unburied and Treasures group, they do parallel play. Clutters Anonymous does parallel play. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool. Victories and goals. We contact our Clutter Buddy to relay our victories or successes from the previous day and our goals for the coming day. We celebrate our victories, small and large. This validation is immensely reassuring and promotes further progress. I have a Clutter Buddy that every day we text each other what we did from the previous day and what we're going to do for the coming day. And it's another great way of doing it that way is it makes me have my to-do list available, and I also get a dopamine hit because I can see, oh, look what I did yesterday, and she pats me on the back and I pat her on the back, and it's really a wonderful thing. And there's lots of different ways to use Clutter Buddies. I have another Clutter Buddy where all I do with her is we talk about our health issues. Did you exercise today? Have you gone to the doctor? Did you get your teeth cleaned? And we touch base about that. So you can use Clutter Buddies for different purposes. Work exchange. We trade services with our Clutter Buddy by offering to help on a project, and our Clutter Buddy returns the favor. It is vital that both people reciprocate and hold up their end of the trade. Now, I've actually done this where I went to a Clutter Buddy's house. This is before the pandemic, and did some work for her, and she did not particularly return the favor, and that really harmed our relationship and kind of altered the trajectory of where we went from there. So it's important, if you're going to help each other out, that it be more or less even. Barriers to getting a Clutter Buddy. Fear of judgment and criticism. Fear of rejection. Fear of not living up to someone else's expectations. Fear of intimacy and vulnerability. Fear of commitment. Fear of failure. And you might as well include fear of success. Shame, embarrassment, and stigma. Lack of communication skills. Being too busy with other things and or not putting decluttering high enough on the to-do list. That is often a major culprit because people are not prioritizing decluttering. lack of Clutter Buddies, and we hope that our Clutter Buddy resource list is a tool that can help modify that as a problem. Ambivalence about decluttering. This is often a real culprit. People often say they want a Clutter Buddy, but in fact, they don't act on it because they're afraid that that would force them into decluttering, and they don't really want, they have mixed feelings about actually decluttering. So here are some tools to break through those barriers. Make a clear-cut agreement from the very beginning that both parties can live with. Include appropriate boundaries. I definitely know people with collecting behaviors who have signed like a contract beforehand, a written contract where they've laid it out. This is how often we're going to meet, and you're going to call me the day before if you're going to cancel unless it's an emergency, et cetera, et cetera. And that can really help clarify what's going to happen and remove some of the fears. And remember, this doesn't have to be a long-term arrangement. Try it out, then stop if it doesn't work out. This is not a marriage. You're not going to go through a nasty divorce proceedings if it doesn't work out. And I recommend that you start out with the least intrusive Clutter Buddy technique by bookending. I find that to be the least intrusive anyway. So call, text, email, or Zoom your Clutter Buddy to state brief, and I'm underscoring brief decluttering commitments. And here are some specific challenges and solutions. Challenge. One Clutter Buddy likes to talk and the other one likes to work. That can be an issue. And it does happen. So solution, set a timer for specific times to break from work and briefly talk. And you can say, look, I really, really want to work and I'm not able to engage in as much discussion. So this feels more comfortable for me. Challenge. One Clutter Buddy wants to have a friendship and the other wants to just be Clutter Buddies. Solution, start out as Clutter Buddies and just realize that a friendship might happen later as a natural result of being Clutter Buddies. Again, we had this Buried in Treasures class that started out on Zoom, and it's continuing on as an Unburied in Treasures class. And both Maureen and Vera are in that Unburied in Treasures group, and they get together all the time. And they're real good buddies now, and that does happen, but don't expect it to happen. Challenge. One Clutter Buddy is comfortable meeting in their home, the other one isn't. Now, obviously, because of the pandemic, this is a little different. So, but meeting on Zoom can be really helpful, just showing each other your collections. So, again, a solution is to meet in a neutral place from time to time, like the park that I mentioned earlier with picnic tables and bringing paperwork to sort. A picture states 1,000 words. So this picture on the left, this is my dining room. I happen to live in a big place. This is my dining room, and this is what it looked like before. I did manage to containerize this. Most of these boxes are what's called banker's boxes. And this is what my dining room looks like now. And I am sitting in this chair right here. And this right here, this is my china cabinet that is right behind me. And I didn't have anybody in my home for 10 years because I had so much stuff. And in the process of decluttering thus far, I have released 816 banker's boxes, or the equivalent, I should say it that way. Now, what I mean by the equivalent of 816 banker's boxes you see this chair here that my cursor is pointing to. If I were to chop that chair up into small pieces, how many banker's boxes would that fit into? And I would estimate that maybe that particular chair fits into two banker's boxes. So that's how I kept track of how many banker's boxes I've let go of. And this has helped me to continue to be motivated because I can pat myself on the back. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to practice two tools that were described earlier. So I'd like everybody to think about a victory you had within the last 24 hours concerning your hoarding behavior, or if you don't have hoarding behaviors, maybe you just have a to-do list. I think pretty much everybody has a to-do list. So for example, we all had a victory because we are here today, and many of you may have been here yesterday. So think about something that you did within the last 24 hours. And then think about one task you are willing to do within the next 24 hours on your to-do list that will help you in your decluttering goals. And if you're comfortable with that, go into the chat room and share your victory and goal. And try to keep it a SMART goal: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Make it something doable. We'll set the timer to complete this activity. And we're going to be sharing the space while we're all working on this activity. Thus, we'll be practicing the tool of parallel play. Often the group energy can be extremely helpful. I don't know, again, I don't know why these things work, but they just do. And then afterwards, please jot your victory down and your goal for the next 24 hours. Put it in your calendar so you remember that that's what you're going to do. And then please consider contacting Clutters Anonymous at www.cluttersanonymous.org or some other Clutter Buddy referral that's on the resource list that's in your materials. And then check with them tomorrow to then bookend on the status of your goal. So Susie has been monitoring the chat room, and I'm going to take a look at what's in there. Okay, and I appreciate that Varian is mentioning that the chat room is not being recorded, so participants don't need to feel like their anonymity is being breached. Okay, so Susie said that she did some vacuuming and her goal is to do 2 loads of laundry. Way to go, Susie. Laura says that she started to clear, and then I don't quite see what that says. Denise says, I'm here today, victory, and I plan to declutter my kitchen island tomorrow. And I love, Denise, how you specified you're going to work on the kitchen island. Rather than I'm going to work on the kitchen, you're going to work on the kitchen island. That's good to do a SMART goal in that fashion. Jerry says, I worked on sorting papers during yesterday's film about clutter. Great, congratulations. Somebody else says, Juliana says, I brought a trash can into the living room and filled it up. Woohoo! Excellent. In the next 24 hours, I will break down the boxes I have ready for recycling and put them in the bin. I'm realizing I shouldn't say the person's name because for anonymity. Okay, someone else says, victory, clearing off half of table in my kitchen, goal, 1 load of laundry. Great. Victory, attended most sessions of hoarding conference on Saturday and started with the Clutter Buddy session today. Goal, collect recyclables in the house, minimum of 1 13-hour gallon kitchen bag. Terrific. I cleaned off 2 shelves to prepare them to go to Goodwill. Oh, I love hearing about stuff going to donation. Today, I will prepare a chest of drawers to go to Goodwill. Oh, also, it's a terrific idea. One way that I started is I looked for all the big objects in my home and tried to get rid of the big ticket items so I could create as much space as possible. So I'm seeing quite a few other victories and goals, and I want to congratulate all of you for the victories that you've had, and I want to wish you good luck on your goals. And again, please consider going to Clutters Anonymous or some other way of checking in with someone about it. And perhaps you can select someone in your own community, somebody you already know, who you can check in with, and become Clutter Buddies with them. Again, I know people who have bedtime routine Clutter Buddies, where they text each other and say, okay, I really have a lot of work left to do, but I need to go to bed right now. And the person checks in with each other on that. So you can find somebody that you would like to work on a particular area with. And it's a very helpful tool. Thank you so much for practicing. And we can continue with this later if there's more time. Meanwhile, I'd like to introduce you to Maureen Speranza, who's a PhD, and she once had a Zen-like apartment. She developed a hoarding disorder later in life when pressed for time raising kids as a single mom and going for her PhD. Well, congratulations, that's a huge achievement, Maureen. And she got help through cognitive behavioral therapy, Buried in Treasures, Clutter Buddy, compassion-focused therapy, and started a book-ending line. Whoops, she made room in her home for her adult children to return home. Congratulations on that as well. That's a huge achievement. Thanks. Thank you, Maureen. So, Maureen, what are we looking at here in this before and after photograph?
This is my living room. On the left, you can see it's full of stuff. And then I was able to get it a lot better on the right side.
Thank you. And I noticed there's a piano here. And I see that there's a piano here, you've told me before. Now, you are a music teacher, is that right?
Yes.
So how was it trying to teach students as a music teacher when your living room was like this?
Well, I could not have people over to my home when my living room was like this, but now I can.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Congratulations. That's a beautiful living room. I love the lights there.
Thanks.
Okay, what are we looking at here?
This is my dining room, and I was unable to eat at my table often because there was so much stuff at it, but now it's clear. So, you know, that's important for me too because of my 2 daughters.
Wonderful. Congratulations. I love those hardwood floors. Beautiful.
Thanks.
And the paint on your wall, it's very lovely.
Thank you.
And what are we looking at here?
Both of my daughters moved out to go to college, and I started filling up many rooms, but this room, and when one of my daughters moved back, I was able to clear out all this stuff. I got rid of this couch. These bunk beds were super hard to get rid of for me because, you know, that reminded me of when there were little tiny kids sleeping in bunk beds and so forth. But she wanted to bring her own room in, so I had to get rid of all this stuff. And now she lives in this room here.
Oh, wow. And is she enjoying being in this space?
Yes. There are some other rooms in my house that are not worked on yet. So she's still trying to encourage me, and that makes a big difference to me, because most of the time I'm doing this for my daughters. but she does like her room.
Oh, that's great. Now, you had mentioned to me that you had utilized the tool of witnessing, that you had paid your daughter to spend time with you in a particular room while she did work on something else, just to keep you company and to thus helping you to keep on track with whatever task you were doing. Was this the daughter that you paid, or was it the other one?
Yes, it is this daughter. She's 25, so she's just getting started in her career, and housing prices are exorbitant. Housing anywhere in the Bay Area is out of sight for anyone. So it's helpful to her to be able to live with me. And then, she has a choice each day of whether she wants to pay me for her rent that day, or do an hour of witnessing and making sure I am decluttering.
I love that you have that creative solution. Thank you for sharing that with us. And what are we looking at here?
So this was a room in my house that was supposed to be a music studio. I moved here 22 years ago, and unfortunately it was barely used as a music studio because I was just piling my stuff in there. And my other daughter graduated from college in June of this year. So I had to make another room for her. They're just too big to share rooms anymore. So I cleared this stuff out, so she was able to come home also.
Well, congratulations that she got through college. That's awesome. And so what we're looking at here is that's a futon and a desk. And so so she was able to settle into this room.
Right.
And how do your daughters feel about the progress that you've made?
They're happy I've made progress. They really don't realize how much I have given up so that they could live here, because they kind of expect it in a way. But they know I made progress, but there are still rooms in my house that I need to do. So they really want me to finish up my bedroom.
Well, I want to applaud you because as we say, progress, not perfection. And this is terrific because I too live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and the housing costs are exorbitant. So I'm glad you were able to achieve this both for yourself and your daughter.
Well, thank you and to Susie too. Appreciate your help. And you, Vera too, is my clutter buddy.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And Susie's got her big kitty cat saying hello. Okay. So, and now, thank you very much, Maureen. And we will be hearing more from Maureen a little bit later. Woohoo, Maureen. Okay. Now let's meet Vera Oliver. Vera's landlady led her to the Mental Health Association of San Francisco. She was able to declutter with the help of MHASF, Adult Protective Services, and friends. She's a graduate of cognitive behavioral therapy and Buried in Treasures. She uses Unburied in Treasures, which is this group that I've mentioned. It's an ongoing support group where they're continuing to get together and study Buried in Treasures. She uses her Clutter Buddies, and she uses the bookending line that Maureen established. And she uses support groups at the Mental Health Association of San Francisco. She's grateful for her Clutter Buddies and shares her story to help others. And I thank you for that. I love hearing your story, Vera. So let's take a look at some of her before and after photos. So Vera, what are we looking at here?
One big room of mess. The left-hand side is my living room, and the right-hand side is my living room. And on the right-hand side, where the pillowcases are, kind of a pinkish tone, right there, right below, yes. That's where I actually slept. I balled up like a kitty cat, or a big cat, and that's where I slept. Because when we get to my bedroom, you'll see why I couldn't get to my bed. I still can't, as many times as I've seen these pictures, I still can't believe that this is my apartment.
Okay, thank you. All right. And
That's my living room after. I live in a Victorian building, apartment, there's 21 units. And I live on the top floor, 52 steps, no elevator. I've been living here for 53 years, since 1968. So, having said that, I can only imagine all the junk that went out up and down the stairs to come in and to leave. It's unbelievable, but this is what happened after I got help with decluttering.
wonderful.
Mhm. That is my kitchen. On the left-hand side was my kitchen. The right-hand side is my kitchen now. As you can see, I couldn't cook, so I ate out a lot. I went to other people's house for dinner, them not knowing why. They just thought I was being real friendly, but I couldn't eat at home. And I ate out at a lot of restaurants. But now, and I love to cook. So now I enjoy my kitchen, and I can enjoy guests to come and eat my food.
I noticed that the floor here is quite clear. So
Yes, and it still is.
wonderful.
I keep
Okay.
it. This is my dining room. On the left-hand side is my before. That the kitchen goes into the dining room. They're small rooms, the dining room and the kitchen, but a lot of character. I like the openness of it. There's a lot of light that comes into my apartment. And as you can see, I couldn't utilize my kitchen or my dining room for a long, long time. There's a table underneath all that clutter, and which you can see on the right-hand side.
Is this the table right here that I'm pointing at?
Yes, that's the table.
Okay.
And that's the same table on the right-hand side without the clutter on it. Being
Terrific.
used what it was meant to be.
Terrific.
Yes. Okay, this is my bedroom. All these pictures are my bedroom before. As you can see, the dresser drawer, I have 9 dresser drawers, and all of them were full beyond capacity, so I couldn't close them. So clothes were hanging off the side. It was like a horror movie, actually, when I look back at it now. And I actually made those drapes, but I couldn't get to them to clean them. So when the room got cleaned, that was the first thing to go, because it no longer, it served its purpose, let me put it that way. On the right-hand side, you can see a portion of my bed down below. But you can also see why I couldn't sleep in my bed, because I couldn't get to my bed.
Are these the items that were blocking your
Yeah.
path to the bed?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And
This is after. This is how my bedroom looks. It looked when before I became a clutterer, and this is how it looks now. So somewhere in between, something went terribly wrong. But I'm happy to say that it's clear now. And, I have some setbacks, but when I can't see, my deadline is when I can't see the top of my dresser, then I know I'm in trouble. So that's when my Clutter Buddies come in, and they made suggestions of how to clear that up, to take, like you said, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So I would take a piece of the top of the dresser and inch my way over till I got that clearance, as you see now. And
Fantastic.
Maureen was a big help too to me, keeping calm and cool and collective when I was going nuts and berserk.
You had mentioned before that you had gotten your space clear and then you had a little relapse, which is, that happens. And
Yep.
that you used your Clutter Buddies as a way to dig out and reclaim your space again.
Exactly. They've been very, very helpful, extremely helpful. I couldn't have done it without them.
Okay, thank you. And I know there's other spaces in your home that we're not showing today. And
Right.
but thank you so much for showing these spaces.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you, Vera. Okay, now we're going to meet Susie Dubois, a licensed marriage and family therapist. And she does individual couples and family therapy. She specializes in treatment for hoarding disorder and collecting behaviors. At the Mental Health Association of San Francisco, she facilitates the cognitive behavioral therapy treatment group for hoarding disorder. She facilitates the family and friends of people with hoarding disorder support group. She's also a clinician for the Better Treatment for Hoarding. It's a study comparing cognitive behavioral therapy to compassion-focused therapy. And in that particular study, she is the clinician for the CBT treatment groups for hoarding disorder. She does presentations, workshops, and is a consultant. And there is her email address, www.susiedubois.com. Okay, at this point, I'm going to stop the PowerPoint, and Susie's going to pose some questions to our peers. Go ahead, Susie.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And thank you so much to Maureen and Vera for showing your before and after pictures. Such a vulnerable and brave thing to do. And I'm always just so proud of all of the hard work that obviously all three of you have done, and your willingness to share with everyone. So I have some questions to ask, and we've been getting some questions both in the Q&A and in the chat. But the questions that, question that we always just start with, because this is the one that we get from everyone right away, is, and I'll start with Vera. How long did this before to after process take? How long did it take you? You have to unmute.
Sorry. Over a period of 20 years, off and on. I judge that because I'm from Boston and all my family's back there, and my mother would come out to visit me. And that's when I discovered I had a problem, when I realized, where is she going to sleep? It wasn't as bad as the pictures that you saw. It wasn't as bad as those, but at the same time, when I knew she was coming, I had to get help to clean up. And this was the worst. The pictures you saw was the worst that it's been. But before then, I just realized something was going terribly wrong.
Sarah, somebody just put in the question, so I'll just keep with you. What did you do to get started? How did you start?
But actually, my landlord had to come into my apartment. I don't know how I did it, but I was able to keep her out for many years. And then one day, I think she was getting ready to sell the building. I didn't know it at the time. And she told me she had to come in to check the smoke detectors. And I said, oh, I can tell you whatever you need to know. I did not want her to come in. And I panicked. And she kind of forced her way in and said, Vera, I have to come in and check your smoke detectors. And when she did, I watched her body language. She was very cool, but she was looking around. And as she was leaving, she said, do you need help? And that was my breaking point. if there was a rock, I would have climbed under it. But I just fell apart and I broke down and said yes. And she led me to MHASF. That was the beginning, but not the end.
So a long process, but you can really identify that starting point. Elizabeth, how long has it taken you to get from your before to after pictures?
About 10 years. And, but I look at it this way. 10 years ago, I was a certain age. I'm not going to say how old I was. And I'm a certain age now. I would have got 10 years goes by whether I declutter or not. So I might as well declutter. Why not? I mean, it took a long time for me to acquire all of that stuff. And it didn't happen overnight for me. I happen to have a really large home. I'm blessed. Both my late husband and I had collecting behaviors, and it takes a time to dig out. But in the race between the tortoise and the hare, the tortoise did win. So slow but steady wins the race. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. And that's what I experienced in my practice. We talked about this in the provider, a couple of presentations yesterday, that treatment is, we haven't quite found great treatment for hoarding disorder yet. We haven't, it still takes us way too long to get through this. So it's interesting to just see that for those who have been very successful and have gotten to maintenance, that it takes a while. And so it takes a lot of consistent hard work and patience. So thank you guys for sharing that. So I want to move on to kind of asking all of you, what Clutter Buddy techniques do you use? I'm recently kind of learning more about how people use multiple Clutter Buddies. And so I'm kind of curious to hear, what have the three of you used? And I'll start with Maureen.
Sure. You know, the book ending lines are really helpful to me. And that's why, you know, a year ago, I started the daily group so that, you know, once a week is just not enough for me. You know, I have to, you know, check in every day and get, you know, as many people to help me. Vera is available at night, so that's great. A lot of people aren't night owls like me. You know, like I mentioned before, I use my daughter for witnessing, and I have another friend who comes over and she works on her photo albums while I declutter a box. That's, you know, more parallel play kind of thing. And, you know, just sharing your victories and goals with your clutter buddies is very helpful because it's motivating, and it's nice to remain positive so that you have the energy to keep going. I haven't done a work exchange though. Never did a work exchange with anybody.
And Elizabeth, how about you? What Clutter Buddy tools do you use?
I use it all, and I do it pretty much every day. I am in touch with a Clutter Buddy of some description basically every day, and I'm in a kind of a routine. And I've done actually all 5 of those. I've done bookending, I've done victories and goals. I do victories and goals every day. I do witnessing. I've done that. I've done the work exchange, and now I can't remember what the 5th tool is, but I've done them all to varying degrees of success. And the main thing is to have as many Clutter Buddies as possible, because that way, when maybe one Clutter Buddy is busy, but somebody else is available, where you can get your needs met from one person and not someone else. So it's all really, really a helpful thing. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to move on to the next question that we have, which is, you know, a lot of times when folks watch this presentation, they come up to us after, and they kind of have like reasons for why their stories don't exactly look like your stories, and kind of name the barriers that people face in order to, you know, get treatment and move through this. So people say that their stuff looks different, or they have more, or they have less, or they started collecting earlier, or they have a mean landlord, not a nice one, that they don't have a way to get their discards out, or they can't find a clutter buddy, that they didn't take your groups. So I'm just kind of curious, how do you respond to those folks who have very valid barriers, that to treatment, finances? But what do you say to those folks who see your after pictures, but still can't see themselves getting to that? Vera, if you want to start with that one.
That's a tough one. That's hard. I thought about it before when I was asked that question, because I'm such a people person that I open up my mouth, and I've learned to ask for help. You'd be surprised how many people like to be asked to help someone, and they're just waiting for them to be asked. So if you don't have access to that, I guess I would probably say to just try to remember to put things, everything has a place. And if it doesn't, maybe the new place could be either a recycling bag or a garbage bag. But if it came from somewhere, find that spot it came from and put it back as you remove things. That's the only thing I can say. If you don't have access to people or internet or television, you can get some help or some clues.
Yeah, Elizabeth, do you want to answer that one too?
Yes. I'm attached to my stuff. My stuff is treasures to me. It may look like trash to you, but it's treasures to me. And the main thing is to try to learn a way to let go of the tight hold grip that I have on objects. And I've had health issues, and the thing about health issues is to just slowly tackle it. I did bookending when I had health issues, where I would call Clutter Buddy and say, in the next half an hour for 5 minutes, I'm going to work on a project for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to rest for 15 minutes, and then for 10 minutes I'm going to do something fun like read a book. And it's surprising how much you can get done in 5 minutes. So in the course of an 8-hour day, that's 80 minutes or an hour and 20 minutes. You can get a lot done in an hour and 20 minutes. So I think the biggest obstacle for decluttering is my mind. My mind is the biggest obstacle, and that there are ways around all of these things, and there's lots of ways to find clutter buddies. Thank you. I pass.
All right, so this will be the last question from me, and then we'll open it up to all of you. So if you have questions, feel free to start typing them into the question and answer place for questions. So my last question, and this is for all of you, I'll ask all three of you. We'll start with Maureen, is what are some of the best things about going from clutter to clear? What has changed in your life since you've been able to be that successful?
For me, the best benefit of being clear is my improving my relationships with my daughters. And I probably wouldn't have even been decluttering this stuff if I didn't have my daughters. It's like I hit bottom because my daughters were very unhappy, and they didn't want to have friends over, and so that really really spurred me on to clean. And I just have to keep doing it even though I don't want to. I have to have a high tolerance for not doing something I don't want to do. So I have to, it's not always, feeling good doing this. I try to think of the positive side and be grateful for everything I have and so forth. But most of the time I just do it, even though I'd rather be doing something else. And that's what I've had to do too. I'd rather do all these fun things in my life. My excuse was that I was too busy. But even when I opened up some time, in 2017, to clean, I realized I couldn't do it. And that's when I reached out for help. So, having to give up activities, in a way, has been a benefit, and just my relationship with my daughters is the best. Thanks.
How about you, Vera? What have been the best things about going clear?
I can have company again. As I said before, I'm a people person. I used to have a swinging door before I became a clutter, and people just knew I always cooked, so they'd just come by, invite themselves over for dinner. I couldn't do that when I became a hoarder and clutterer. So now I can go back to that. They have to call me first because I don't cook as often as I used to. But I do like entertaining. And when I go away, I just came back from 2 trips, and it was nice to come back to a nice, clean place. It felt like so much weight was taken off me, not having to follow the yellow brick road to get from one room to the other. It was just nice, all that open space. That's it.
And Elizabeth, how about you?
I'm grateful that I'm not afraid of the landlord anymore. And there's a lot of eviction in my area of the world. And I don't want to be on the streets during pandemic. And just that horrible fear of the knock on the door. Oh my gosh, is it the landlord? And are they going to kick me out? I'm thrilled about that. And knowing that if there's a fire, I can get to the exits, that the firefighters can get through the windows, all of that is a big relief.
All right, thanks to all of you for your answers. And so now we'll open it up to questions and answers from all of you. A number of you have already posted some really wonderful questions to start off with. One question I wanted to ask the panel is, did you get rid of all your stuff? Did you donate it, or did you just move it to a separate storage area?
I just got rid of it. I didn't try to sell anything. I found if I tried to take it to a flea market or a garage sale and people tried to come down off the price I put on it, I would take it back home. I was insulted. I felt it was worth what the price I put on it, but I didn't have a problem giving it away. So that's what I ended up doing.
When my late husband died, he had collecting behaviors as well, and he had a lot of very valuable items. And I did do some garage sales and trades. I actually ended up getting about $14,000 in a garage sale. So, but basically what I would do is I would take my objects that I knew didn't have a lot of value, and I would donate them. And then I would let them figure out whether it needed to go into the circular filing cabinet, the trash, or whether it had any kind of resale value. Because at the beginning, I had too much attachment. So yeah, the goal is to get rid of the stuff rather than pay money for keeping the stuff when it's cheaper to let go of it and then buy it again if needed. I did it earlier on. I had a storage unit. I ended up spending $12,000 over a period of many years on stuff that was worth $1,000. I could have gone around the world. Yeah, that was before the pandemic, but yeah, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Thanks.
Great, thank you. One person is asking, do any of you employ a housekeeper now? Does anybody have a housekeeper? Go ahead, Vera.
It was actually gifted to me. The building manager took it upon herself to get 3 other people, and 4 of them for a Christmas gift. They gave me 2 housekeepers that comes in once a month and cleans. And I cannot tell you, I think it's the best gift I ever received in my life, at least in my hoarding life. I never would have thought of that myself, but they do it every month. And it keeps me accountable too, because before they come in, I have to get ready for them to be able to do their job. So I have to clear my table, clear my things so that they can dust and mop and everything else. So that keeps me going when I know they're coming in.
Yeah, I love that outside accountability. This was gone over in the presentation, but I'm going to ask it again because it's come up a number of times in different ways. How does one find a clutter buddy? I'll ask Elizabeth.
Well, the resource list that we have provided for you is both in the conference materials, and I did manage to put it in as a live link. So there's all kinds of things. At MHASF, we really don't care where you get help. We have no vested interest in that whatsoever. We do try to provide people with free information, places where you can get free help, but sometimes that's not always available either. But we just want you to get help. And so please contact me, and maybe Susie can put my email address again in the chat room. So if you hear of additional resources, let me know. SteriClean has an online chat room where you can talk to one another. Lee Shore, he has a group where you can do a buried in treasures group for a relatively inexpensive amount of money, and then you can meet people there and then hopefully develop a relationship. Clutters Anonymous, our agency does everything we do is for free, but most of it is limited to California residents. There's just a lot of different, on that particular resource list, there's about 25 referrals. So it's available. The main thing is for most people, is to overcome the barriers that we talked about earlier in the presentation about what is the resistance to getting a clutter buddy. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Someone also wrote, my cluttering got worse during the lockdown because business closes earlier and many recycling places shut down. How did lockdown affect the panelists? And if having the buddies over video chat made things harder or easier? Why don't I start with Maureen and then we'll go to Elizabeth.
For me, I'm an introvert, so I kind of liked being locked down. But what was helpful to me is I found a group on Facebook called Buy Nothing. And even though the Goodwill was closed and so forth, my neighborhood Buy Nothing group, you can post items on there and people will come to your house and take them away for you here in my neighborhood. So that was super helpful. Having buddies for me definitely made it easier. I don't really spend a lot of time talking to people. I mean, some people could find it distracting if you just end up chatting with people too much. But if you pretty much stick to your task and make it pretty clear that you want to get some help. Sometimes people are available to chat, but it's nice to have some company too. When if you don't have anybody around you, it's helpful.
Yeah, Elizabeth.
Okay. So we have found at MHASF that many people who have collecting behaviors actually got better during the pandemic. And the reason is because a lot of folks, myself included, my tendency is to run away from my problem. I'm just too busy, so I don't like being around my collection, so I'll just leave the house and prove to myself that I have a lot going on, and I'm on the ball, and I'm giving to others, and don't have time to address my own stuff. So a lot of folks were kind of faced for the first time with their stuff and didn't have an escape valve. So that happened for some people. For other people, the reverse happened, where they got really depressed and got less motivated to declutter. It is true that getting rid of the stuff became more challenging because many of the donation centers closed down because of the limitations of the pandemic. And that's when one is forced to say, okay, it's really, really okay for me to let go of stuff and put it in the landfill. I'd rather have stuff go into the landfill than to live in a landfill. I'd rather put stuff in recycling. That's true, but if that's not an option, I'm tired of living in a garbage can. I'm tired of living in a storage unit. I'm tired of living in a thrift store. And that I deserve to live in an atmosphere where it's clear spaces. And once I get decluttered, then I can be an environmentalist. But until such time, it's okay for me to throw away, quote unquote, good stuff. Thank you.
Thanks. So I think we have about time for one more question. And someone in the chat said earlier that they were thinking about having their housemate be their clutter buddy, even though she or he and their housemate have conflict. And I'm wondering if one of the panelists wanted to take that on, if that would be a good idea to have a clutter buddy who you live with and have conflict with. Somebody want to take that one? Vera, take that?
I don't think that would, I mean, my clutter buddies on Zoom, I call my roomies because they're the closest to having roommates for me, but they can be turned off and they can be turned on. I don't have one in my environment, in my space. I don't think that would work too well. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, you definitely want to find somebody, you know, the way that Elizabeth describes clutter buddies is you can hear the description as opposed to a coach, because it's someone who really is just like giving you affirmations and support and not a whole lot of feedback, right? So it has to be somebody who can tolerate that position of just being a supporter. Mm-hmm. All right, I think we're at the end of our time. Thank you everyone for your wonderful questions, and thank you to our panelists for your presentations and your before and after pictures, and for sharing your experiences with us.
Yes, thank you all very much. And I was of split mind here trying to answer questions from Susie as well as in the panel in the Q&A there. But thank you all very, very much. And hope is a possible, change is possible, and please don't give up. Don't give up. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.